Hey everyone, so we're back in Les Sables d'Olonne after our time in Tasmania, and it's kind of good to be sitting here, familiar ground for us, and it's certainly an interesting period in the terms of the race. I mean, we're not quite halfway for the whole fleet, but the majority is well on the way across the Pacific, and the next thing of course is Cape Horn. And arriving back here, believe it or not, we're actually starting to talk about the finish of the Golden Globe race. You know, we're talking about the planning for arrival of the first boat, whoever that may be. And there's this whole thing yesterday, I think, was 2 years ago, that the Vendée Globe started from here going out, you know, thinking of the weather. And then we've got the Route de Rum happening, the Rum Road, you know, with all the solo sailors. There's a lot of people here connected with that. And so been a bit hectic and crazy watching that whole solo racing scene there, which is fantastic to see. And, you know, just generally, you know, watching our guys, it's hard to believe, you know, when it was a real, what would you say, a shock or a reality check when we started talking about the finish of the GGR. I've never even thought of that. So I know a lot of you are thinking, oh, what are we going to do when it's finished? It's a bit the same for us, but it's hard to believe we've got this far, and it's certainly an epic journey with everything that's going on. As an overview for the fleet, generally, I've still got some questions around Igor. He's still sailing very slowly. We're in touch with the Russian team. They're not too concerned. They're surprised as well at how slow he's going. It may be an issue with the barnacles and looking after his rig, but he's making incredibly slow progress, and it's still going to be another month or so before he actually gets to Hobart. And when he does, we'll be looking at him, his boat, all those issues to see. There was a question raised earlier this week about would we automatically put him into Chichester class. No, we wouldn't. We don't control any of that. But what we do consider is with his forestay repair, is it what we'd call satisfactory to carry on across the Southern Ocean around Cape Horn, or will we require him to actually make a permanent repair? If that was the case, it would mean that he would then have to go to Chichester class. I'm not saying we'd do that, but that's a consideration that might happen. Certainly we'll wait and see. Mark Sinclair, the indications are that we're getting from him, certainly he's running low on water, and he's already said officially that he may stop in Hobart to get water, look at the condition, service and things, whatever. He's not saying there's any problems with his boat, but I know he's keen to talk to family and so on, so he may have some other ideas about reasoning to stop there. So we'll wait and see what happens. We're not expecting him there till about the 10th of December, but we'll monitor that as well. He's making cool progress. He's on his way. Hurley is a long way in front now. In fact, you'll see him jump forward. Hurley jump forward quite a bit, I think today or maybe tomorrow, which puts Hurley only a few days away from Tasmania. And of course, she went through Bass Strait, didn't go down to Hobart. She made a drop at the entrance to Port Phillip Bay, called over the pilot boat and passed over his letters, and then carried on to New Zealand, and he made his big stop. He stopped for nearly 8 hours or so in Dunedin, but that's a whole new story. Tapio, if you've seen the update with the tracker this morning, you will see that Tapio's in line for probably the worst week of his entire race. He's got basically about 6 or 7 days of unfavourable weather, not big winds and big storms, just all from the wrong direction. So he's going to make very, very poor progress, and he's going to have not what I call enjoyable sailing for the next few days. So it'll be interesting to see how his tweets go. We're not worried, you know, it's not storms, it's just he's missed the gate. It's as if the other three, you know, Istvan, Susie and Uku have shot away, and he's going to have all sorts of trouble trying to make that little passage underneath the bottom of New Zealand and on towards the top corner of the no-go zone. The others are in a real race now. It's very interesting and it's intriguing to watch. There's this real thing going on with Istvan catching Susie, Susie catching Uku, and then, you know, it's going to be just fun to watch. Who knows where they'll be when they're going around Cape Horn. Uku has managed to clear off half the barnacles, but he's still got a lot on the boat. Susie's, you know, got over all of her other challenges, and she's focused now where she's at. She wants to hunt down Uku. He's in a podium position. He's in 3rd place, and that's kind of cool. It's funny how the balances of just getting around with the adventure can suddenly be switched off, and all of a sudden it's a serious boat race, and that's what's happening with that middle fleet. And Istvan, you know, I always keep looking back to where he was coming halfway down the Atlantic. You know, he was right at the back of the fleet, not written off, but I mean, had so many issues and challenges. And now, slowly but surely, he's been catching ground, and he's still there, and he's right up there. I mean, anyone could win this race. That's the other funny part. Mark Slats is now hunting down Jean-Luc. He's going to have 3 or 4 days of really nice sailing again. He's already had some good sailing. He's closed the gap with Jean-Luc. And as we speak, Jean-Luc's just come out the back end of another storm, the first one since he damaged his rig. And we haven't had any untoward phone calls during the night. That's always pleasing for us. And we haven't had any strange messages either, so I'm assuming he's okay with that. He went into it knowing they're coming. There's this one and there's another little one coming in about 12, 18 hours. So not only did he actually repair his rig, he went up the mast 4 times to settle down all those issues. I was surprised to see he went up again for a 5th time. And I think he did that knowing these other storms are coming, and he's got around. And I think he's just using what we call belts and braces. He's set up some gear so he can have extra lines on there and strap it down. So if he's running with no sails at all, then the rig is even stronger. So it's a very prudent thing to do. Jean-Luc's not silly. And he'll tell you that, oh, you know, he's got to do this, that, and the other. But I'm quite sure he's still racing. And he knows that he wants to and has to stay ahead of Mark Slats, and it's going to be a close called thing, so watch this space. But he will be incredibly sensible in these storms that are coming through. And the prospect for Jean-Luc being the first around Cape Horn, if he keeps it all together, is that he will have typical and classic Cape Horn Southern Ocean weather. It's not going to be easy, it's not going to be extreme, but there's plenty of heavy weather coming, plenty of big seas, and everything you'd expect. So he'll be happy to get around. He's done it 5 times before, and I think this will be the most significant for him in the nature that he's in a small boat, you know, no electric autopilots. He probably knows it's his last crack at it. You know, he's not a young fella anymore, and it means a lot. So some fun times. We're scheduling a special event for going around Cape Horn on the 26th of November. He should be around by then, or yeah, he should be around. I reckon he'll probably go around on the 24th, something like that. And we're going to have some friends here, and so that call, that satellite phone call, the scheduled one, there'll be some friends listening into that live. So if you're in Les Sables d'Olonne, you can get yourself along to the office there. We'll publicise it. You'll hear all about it locally here, and we'll make a bit of a thing about it. And we're going to get from him what he wants for his first meal when he gets to Les Sables d'Olonne. And hopefully that'll work out that everyone that arrives, as they arrive, they'll get their wish list for him when they get on the dock. So we'll wait and see. Anyway, that's really about it. So we'll go straight on to the questions. I had a heap of questions this week. Had to shut them down again. So the first one is kind of interesting, and it's worded like this. It's from John Stewart, and it says, why was Susie allowed to dive on her hull to clear barnacles and no one else was? Well, that's not correct, first of all, and this is the last explanation on the barnacle issue. GGR runs an event around the world, which is boats sailing under coal regs, collision regs, and that's it. There's no other rules. Any entrant can do what they like, anywhere they want, anywhere in the world. So when Jean-Luc came through to do his barnacles, he didn't have any to do. He didn't want to go in the water, so he didn't do any. When Mark Slats came in, he'd removed his barnacles. He decided to do that out in the Southern Ocean. He'd stripped them all off, spent 2 or 3 hours in the water doing it. When he got to Sydney, to Hobart, he decided, right, to go in the water, check the hull, sponge it down. There's virtually no barnacles there because he got rid of them before. When Susie arrived, she had some barnacles. She jumped in the water and she removed 50 or 60 barnacles and you know, sponged down the hull. Shortly after that, we were made aware of the quarantine regulations, and so we were then advising all other entrants. It's not part of the GGR race rules, has nothing to do with us telling them what they can and can't do. We just advise the others, oh, look, there's some quarantine regulations here for biosecurity, and you're not allowed to clean barnacles off. But we told them before they arrived so that they could actually clean them in the ocean if they wanted to. Got nothing to do with the GGR race at all. We don't have to offer time penalties or you know, time allowances for the others that came late and didn't get to do it or anything. It's got nothing to do with us. It's just part of the ocean, part of international travel, and so you can see that we don't control any of that. We didn't say that Susie could go and dive her hull. We didn't say that Uku couldn't. He did decide he didn't want to. It's completely beyond our control. So I hope that makes it clear, and certainly I think part of it, you know, obviously Tapio is really mortified with his situation, and he may be doing something about that later on because he gave specific instructions to his boatyard that they needed to put brand X on the hull and they put brand Y. And I think there's some lobbying going on here, there and everywhere, but it's got nothing to do with us. We are running the Golden Globe race. So that's probably the last time I'll bring it up. It seems to come up a lot. I think there's some people trying to drive an agenda there maybe. Who knows? I've got no idea. Anyway, Richard Lear, thoughts on rowing with Mark Slat's actually rowing when it's calm. Is it valuable? Does it have any benefit and so on? Well, I don't know. He's the only one rowing. It's psychologically very worthwhile. It would be good for Mark. You know, he's a powerful guy and very determined, and it could have some benefit. You know, the whole issue of using your motor to get to certain areas within the limits of your 160 litres of fuel, and also to, you know, psychologically get from one spot to the other. He can move the boat at a couple of knots over 4 hours. That's 8 miles. I've seen stuff in the doldrums and in the tropics where you've got a rainstorm over there, maybe a mile or so away, and there's a lot of wind there and you have nothing. So it could be worthwhile, but you know, there's no definitive answer to that. I mean, pot luck, take your guess. But for Mark, I think a lot of it's psychological. Alan Ricketts, why did we choose Kingston Beach for the film drop? Well, you all know the answer with the film drops. You know, it's something that was done regularly in 1968 with the first race. You know, Matthys and Robert Knox-Johnson and others were dropping off films and stuff. Matthys came into Hobart. Hobart is easier than Melbourne. Robert Knox-Johnson went into Port Phillip Bay at Melbourne. And we wanted something that was going to work in terms of trying to make it accessible to the public, as well as keeping it outside port limits. And, you know, it all fitted. I knew that area. I'm from Hobart. I lived there for 10 years or so. And it seemed like a good place. And in my opinion, it all worked well. Everything associated with the film drop, it's certainly a challenge for them to get there. But it was in 1968 in most cases when they were trying to drop off films in different spots. I mean, Robin went into Dunedin, he ran aground for some time and, you know, had all sorts of issues. But he did it because he needed to get that link to the rest of the world. So, and it's a great spot. Our guys went in there, they were able to anchor, it's reasonably protected, and, you know, it works. So, and Kingston, I know, is very happy because it put a bit of a highlight there. And certainly Tasmania is a great place to go visit. Tourism there is going nuts. Anyway, Mark Dyson wanted to know, what's the problem with Tapio's engine? It was a combination of things. It goes back to the installation apparently at the yard. They might have forgotten to put oil in the gearbox or something, and then that led to some other issues with cooling, and it goes on and on and on. It was so not complicated, but so many little things building up all the time. Frankly, I lost track of what the ultimate problem might have been, and in the end, Tapio's just given up. He just can't get it started. So that's it. Robin Hurley, okay, brings an interesting one. It says GGR sailors are very experienced, bordering on professional, so why and how could they ever even think about missing the obvious things and making basic mistakes like forgetting your gloves or forgetting your socks, or only having one winch handle, or even forgetting your mask? Now, first of all, Jean-Luc, is he a professional? Yes, he is, but this is a different sort of event. A lot of them are just one-man bands, or just couple, you know, husband and wife with some friends helping and things like that. That's the first thing. They don't have huge teams. They don't. Even Jean-Luc hasn't got a huge unlimited budget. I mean, neither did Philippe Péchet. You know, it was just a reasonable amount of money to do it nicely. It wasn't like they had, you know, like you see in all the other deals. So I would not suggest for a minute that they're a normal campaign with all these professional helpers there. Secondly, there's a lot on your mind when you're doing this stuff, and the only way you can experience that is to be on scene and see what goes on. A lot of pressure, a lot of things to do. There's time pressures, and no one's ever got enough money. They've never got enough time, and so there's a lot of lists going on. I know with Uku's winch handle, that went missing from the boat. They were on the boat, but someone might have borrowed it off his boat just before the start and forgot to put it back, or whatever. I don't know. He didn't realise he didn't have a mask on board to dive over the side until after he left. You know, some of that was miscommunication, whatever. You know, Lionel was involved with setting the boat up. Sometimes he brought his own gear on. Sometimes there was gear left over when he sold the boat. Who knows what? It happens. I mean, you know, things like gloves and socks, that's so easy to happen. When I did the BOC, I only had right-hand gloves. I don't know how I managed that. And I forgot my shampoo. Not that I had a lot of hair. I had a little bottle of shampoo. I only brought one cassette tape with me for some reason. I forgot to load the cassette tapes. It happens. It's just human nature, and that's part of the colour of the GGR, I think. So they're not as big a campaigns as you think. Thomas Strand, how much can Jean-Luc Bass take, and what precautions would he be doing? Well, I just, in the briefing at the start, explained he's got it pretty well nailed down. I think generally the only thing he can't do well is to pound to windward. Normally, later on in the Atlantic legs, there's occasions there when you do either, it's not really windward, but it's very close reaching. So it's in the trades and you want to try and hold it as close as you can. When that happens, you're going to see him take a completely different course probably than the other entrants. By then it could be really interesting because Mark Slats will be getting very close to him by then, if all goes well. And Mark will be able to hold high. He hasn't got furling gear, so he's got better sail shape going to windward or really close reaching, a lot more power. And you'll see Mark Slats possibly taking a completely or slightly different course than Jean-Luc. That's where the changes will be. In the storms, if he's going with no sails or little head sails, if it's any wind from the beam or after the beam, he's effectively 100%. So you're not going to see him go deadly slow. You're going to see him have some issues of performance later on. So he knows what's a good repair and what's not, and once he's repaired something, he'll know if it's worth 75% or 50%, and he'll adjust his sailing accordingly. He's had a lot of experience. He's lost his mast before, had just huge experience. So I'm confident that he'll do okay, and I just hope he makes it safely back to Les Sables d'Olonne, touch wood. Matthew Bullagjet, why don't we, this is a good one, why don't we mention Bernard Matthys and Joshua more often, because he's a bit of a hero and a guru? Well, I had a bit of a smile on this because I think we do. I'm a great fan of Bernard Matthys and Joshua. I hope to be sailing in my Joshua class boat in 2022. We regularly bring up things about Joshua and so on, but we've stated very clearly from day one, it's on the website, all over the website, this edition of the GGR is a celebration of the first person to go around and achieve that feat of solo non-stop, Sir Robert Knox-Johnson and Sue Haley. And hence the boats are modelled on sort of the Sir Haley sort of concept, 32, 36 feet, full keel, outboard rudder. So it's a celebration of the winner. And it's in the theme and the spirit of the original Golden Globe. So every now and then we bring up Donald Crowhurst, we bring up Matthys quite often, I believe, but he's not the main feature of the game right now. So you know, that's the simple answer. In 2022, that edition is all about the celebration of Bernard Matthys. So the GGR will be on every 4 years. The first two are very important. First is this edition for Sue Haley. Second one, we'll be focusing a lot on Joshua. And then after that, it's the GGR. So that's that one. The next question is, why didn't GGR send a weather alert to Jean-Luc to stop him or send him back or stop him going into the storm when he damaged his rig? Well, we actually did have him on a weather alert for 48 hours before those storms, but there was no point in sending him back or sending him too far away from it because you couldn't avoid that one. Okay, we usually, there's two actions we can do. One is just make sure that the entrant is aware of the wind strength and direction. Anything over sort of 40 knots, we will 45 knots. I'll consider that to be worth telling him about. They're getting good reports from the ham radio network, and certainly Jean-Luc is. He knew what was coming, so we just reinforced that with, okay, you're going to get this and that. And unfortunately, in that blow, that's when he got the damage. He pitch poled, and his boat was damaged. That was the reality. So, and everything we give the entrants is advice. It's not directives. You must go here and do that. It's up to them whether they decide to take that advice. We just offered him another one. He knew these two were coming, the one that's just passed, and we've suggested once the wind swings west, he could, if he prefers, go west, and it may mean the majority of this next one, which is another short little blow for about 12 hours, will go underneath him. And it's up to him whether he does that. I know he's getting good weather. He's very experienced. He'll make up his own mind, and we go from there. But even giving that advice, there's no guarantees. I mean, anything can happen in those storms. Okay, Malcolm Collins. Okay. Oh, this is a classic. Okay, do the questions that get answered drive me nuts? No, not at all. I like answering the questions because it's coming from all different people. Like, you're all out there we've got quite a following now of people who have never sailed before in their life. They don't even know what a spinnaker is or a kite. They don't know anything about boating at all. And so there's no such thing as a silly question. So keep them coming. That's the first thing. We're all at different experience levels. So am I. I'm still learning so many things about sailing. I mean, I've been sailing all my life, but you're always learning. And there's no such thing in my mind as a silly question. But the lead into this question was in the context then of what do I do to relax, right? To get away from it all. Well, funny enough, that's kind of interesting. One of the things I'm doing to relax now is planning to try and find a sponsor for 2022. It's complete mind change, complete mindset. So for me, I'm pretty intensely involved with the GGR 24 hours a day. It's my life. Same with Jane, it's what we do. But it's not like a job. It's hard work. It's got all those things, but it's what we want to do. So it's not that bad. But to answer your question, to relax, it's just something that's completely different. And right now, I'm sort of getting a little bit excited at trying and find sponsors for 22. And, so that's kind of relaxing. And the other thing is you've probably seen some of my columns, when I write my thoughts and so on, just ideas. I actually enjoy that because it takes me off the race. And I can just be myself and just spill it out and give you my gut feeling on something. And I don't, and honestly, I say that my thoughts columns are just what I feel. I don't care what people think. I don't care if they think it's crazy or wrong or I've said the wrong thing or anything like that. It's just my feeling, and I actually enjoy that. It's kind of fun. I can't sit and, I don't read another Western novel or I don't read other books. I'm just happy in this GGR world at the moment. I've got a lot of other things happening outside GGR, but they're all on hold until this one's over, and we go from there. So our life is a bit of fun, and we enjoy what we do. Fred. Question for Fred. The exclusion zone, is it an arbitrary line, or what was it there for? Was it just too icy and cold further south? Well, even at this time of the year, there is a limit for icebergs, so ice is a possibility. That's one of the reasons we don't send them further south. Another one is to keep them higher, so it's closer to the Rescue Coordination Centre's ability to, set up an operation to recover someone if there's a problem. And also, there's no question the weather further south is actually nastier. It's further south you go, the more extreme the weather is. I'm seeing a clear distinction with the Pacific Ocean compared to the Indian Ocean. It's what we always said. The Pacific is a bit more stable and a bit more organised, so at least they're making good time across the Pacific. But it's all about keeping them out of bad weather. And interestingly, we go down to 46. In the Vendée Globe last 2 years ago, I think they only went to 42. So they keep them up higher, but they've got higher risks of hitting things and they move a lot faster, so slightly different. But I'm quite happy where it's sitting for the Indian Ocean right now. Tim Miller. This is an interesting one. Tim Miller says, seeing the entrance have only got sextants in the GGR, how are we not possibly going to be able to slam into Guadeloupe as they're heading back to France? I think that was in reference to Alex on Boss in the Rum Road. It was a really sad scene to see him touch the bottom on the way through, but I've got to say it can happen to the best of us. Fortunately, it hasn't happened seriously for me, but like Jean-Luc, for instance, it happened to him in the BOC. He went to sleep just going along the coast, and everywhere he was, this is coming up to Sydney, was rocks and cliffs. Okay, when he went to sleep, just laying his head on a winch to have like a 2-minute, he's in the cockpit, he put his head on the winch, went to sleep, and he parked the boat on a beach, right? Literally a suburban beach in Sydney, and it was only about a mile or so wide. Anywhere else it would have been rocks and it would have all been over. It's happened to numerous sailors, numerous times. So certainly if you've been following that, Alex explained what's going on, and it just happens. But hopefully it won't happen to GGR fleet, touch wood. We'll just see how we go. Mike Phillips, opinion on Jean-Luc's mast fix. What do I think about it and how it's going? I think it's great. I think he's done the right thing. I'm happy he's not gone to Chile. It's fantastic for the event, for the GGR. It's fantastic for Jean-Luc. I can't imagine how he would have thought if he had have gone to Chile and gone into Chichester or even worse. This is a big thing, this race for him, and we really hope that he can finish the event. It's, you know, yeah, one of those things. So I think his mast repair is good. As I said before, he's very experienced. He knows what his limitations are, and I'm hoping to see him sail all the way from there where he is now, all the way back here to Les Sables d'Olonne. Russ Harding, Susie's just missed the exclusion zone. She was heading straight for it. Did we give her an alert, or was it her navigation? I was watching it very closely. I was a few hours away from notifying her that she's within, we usually leave it to within 30 miles of the zone, and just as I was about ready to do it, she'd already altered course. So she knows what she's doing. She obviously knows where she is, and she did it herself. We didn't tell her where the zone was. The reason we alert them to the zone if they're getting close is because the zone's a bit of an artificial thing that was never there in 1968. We know that, and so giving them a bit of a tip off that's where it is still in the spirit of the GGR. We don't want to give them an unnecessary time penalty when they're down there. It's about safety, and that's all it is. So we're quite happy to balance that with some advice, but we've only done that a couple of times. I think we gave Jean-Luc one once. I think we've given Mark Slats one, and Uku as well got an alert. They were within 30 miles. Philip Future, do GGR sailors use nav lights? I hope they do. They have to under the race rules, which is the collision regulations, and I know most of them are. Well, you know, because the only way I say that is because I've only asked a few, and everyone I've said, are you using nav lights? Oh yeah, absolutely. So it's important. There's still ships down there. There's about, on average, 1.5 ships a day transiting the Southern Ocean, you know, where they are. So you never know. You just never know. Timothy Moroni, is Tapio's rig, Timothy Warenza, is Tapio's rig original or is it extra strong, and so on? I can tell you now, Tapio's rig is like enormous. He has a larger section. He has 12mm lower Strouds and 12mm lower caps. 12mm is huge. That's the wire you use on a 60-footer. He's just belt and braces. He's got 3 forestays plus an inner baby stay. So if you look at the photos on the boat, on the rig, it's massive. He doesn't want to lose his rig. Plus he's got all sorts of running stays that he can set up if he's in a big blow and he wants to strap the rig. If he's running under bare poles, a little head sail, he can put 3 lots of stays after the mast as well. He keeps them by the cap shrouds forward, like lashed up, and he can unpull them and pull the runners back and pull another wire as well. So there is no question in my mind that Tapio has the strongest, heaviest rig, especially in proportion to what is effectively one of the smallest hulls and smallest boats. So very strong. You can do that under the regulations. You can't have any less than original, but you can have as many or bigger as you want. So his is very strong. Jarrett Lowe is impressed with the sails holding up well in the GGR. What features do they use? He's got a Contessa 26, I should say. Famous little version of the boat. Nick Gaff, our digital director, he's sailed one of those from Germany all the way back across the Pacific, and there's some very famous sailors that have sailed solo around the world in little Contessa 26s, Tabiani and Tanya Abbey and a few others. Anyway, yeah, the GGR sails are good. They're all Dacron. There's no high tech allowed, and the features they're using are all pretty much common sense for serious ocean sailing. And in fact, if you get a copy of Bernard Matthys' long route, in the back he goes through a great appendix, and it's really amazing that the suggestions he has in the book now, they're still very relevant. If you're making basic Dacron sails, it's all about anti-chafe, and it's just making all the little strong points, you know, things like extra strengthening on the hanks of your staysail, because your staysail and storm jibs are going to get hammered in the Southern Ocean. So it's all pretty self-explanatory. There's plenty of books around. I couldn't go through here now and give you all the spec, but there's common things like on the furling gear, having foam luff there, so that when they're furling up, you take out the fullness of the middle of the sail and makes it a bit flatter as you're furling. I always like on my head sails on reefing gears, I always have permanent reef points, and by that all you do is, yeah, you have the foam luff, but you say to yourself, okay, if I'm going to turn it from a number a smaller one, I'll come in, say, a metre, I'll put another a clue patch and another foot patch and another head patch on the leech and the foot of the sail. So as you roll it up, you've got extra cloth when it takes that point. I put a big black line on it. So from the cockpit, when I've furled it, it's gone in far enough to that first reef point, and I leave it there, and it's extra strong. It doesn't stretch the foot and stretch the leech if you're driving like that for 3, 4, 5 days. And then I'll have another spot. I usually have 2. So I said, I've got to get it smaller. So I furl it up, I reef it a few rolls until I see the black line come, and I've got another strengthening patch there on the foot and on the leech. So it stops that stretch on the sail and makes it a lot stronger as well. So there's lots of little things there. Too much to talk about now. Look at the pictures and you'll get some ideas. Final one, another one from one of our great fans said, the shop. I need to do some Christmas shopping. When's it opening? Spoke to Jane, and I think we're going to open the shop properly this coming week, so stand by. That's really about it. Thanks for following. Good to be back here, and we'll see you again next week. We're going to do I'll do English live tracker update on Monday mornings, on Wednesday mornings, and on Saturday mornings. And Christophe will be doing the French ones live tracker on Thursday and questions on Friday. So watch this space. Thanks a lot. See you later.